Hi, welcome to the Bluewave Technology Group's webinar series. This series is designed to provide the latest trends, technologies, and how they may be able to help you solve your business challenges. Today, we're going to be focused on franchise and multi-location solutions. We've been very lucky to be able to have John Lloyd, Field CTO from CBTS, to come and join us today, and look forward to talking to you about it. Hey, John, how are you?
Good, Paul. Thank you. Very excited to be here. Really excited for our partnership with Bluewave and for the opportunity to be on the webinar. Thank you.
Yeah, we very much view you as a strategic partner, and we're very excited to be on this webinar together today. So, John, right off the bat, tell us a little bit about yourself and about CBTS.
Yeah, so my role here at CBTS, I've been here about going on 13 years. And in our industry, there tends to be some gaps where we go very wide across an organization's technology and business challenges. So CBTS, we deliver global security solutions, managed services, traditional networking. We deliver telecommunications services, professional services, staffing. All of these can start to feel disjointed sometimes when you work with organizations. And so my role in kind of this field CTO role is to help organizations stitch together what is your long-term cohesive strategy. Where do you need help? I always tell organizations, think of CBTS as a puzzle piece. We'd love to do everything A to Z, soup to nuts, but that's not realistic. You have your own in-house competencies. You have other partners that you trust and have done business with for years. And our flexibility really to tailor solutions to the end customer and do business how and where you want to is really a key differentiator for us in this managed services and managed security services space.
Wow, what a great intro, and it makes sense with all the different. To your point, I like the puzzle analogy. There's lots of pieces, and certain things just fit nicely. So great, let's dive in. So right off the bat, what trends are you seeing in franchise and multi-location solution?
The first thing that comes to mind when you think franchise or multi-location is retail, right? Mm-hmm. Customer analytics, understand data. And not only data, but how can we action that data? So we're seeing a lot more around machine learning, around Internet of Things like sensors, things like disposition to understand how's the customer's demeanor when they enter our location versus when they leave. What are our busy times? Is our staffing optimized to handle it? And so it's really utilizing technology. In the past, even as recent as probably 5 years ago, technology was a cost center. We now are having these conversations with retail organizations, with franchise type organizations, where maybe marketing's involved, finance is involved, technology is involved, because it's all about how do we utilize these as tools to unlock a better customer experience, to streamline operations, to be the most efficient that we can, to make sure we're spending every dollar appropriately. And so IT is no longer that box that sits on the wall that the CFO doesn't understand why they have to refresh every 3 or 5 years. It really is a driver into all of these different business lines within the multi-site environments.
No, that makes sense, because you're really, in a way, you're optimizing, you're pushing strategically pushing the business forward. That makes a lot of good sense. So, give me a good example of someone right now who's benefiting from working with you in either franchise or multi-location.
I'll give you an example where I talked about the idea of streamlining operations. We work with a large nationwide food retailer, and we utilize sensors. So we have sensors on their refrigeration units, and we're able to detect a change or drop, or in their case, an increase in temperature. And we've had refrigerators that have failed in the middle of the night, and we've had store managers show up with dry ice and be able to get the inventory saved while we work on they call their operations team to repair the unit rather than having food go to waste and spoil it. That's one example of how technology is more than just the old tech stack. However, there still is that common use case. We have a retailer that we actually partner with Bluewave on, and they've got some 3,000 sites across the US and Canada. Well, when you have a headache at one site, now you're really multiplying that times 3,000. So the key there becomes standardization, uniformity, predictability. And so you're going to have a tech stack. You still are going to need internet and a firewall and a backup internet, because what happens if you go down? And we're going to need switching, and we're going to need access points. The things that are maybe kind of more run rate IT, and they aren't as sexy or fun as some of the IoT and machine learning and AI things that are coming out, but there's still that foundation that is required. Trying to do that one time can be a challenge, but times 3,000 and spread out across 6 different time zones and 3,000 miles. That's a really big deal. And so we always say with CBTS, we are the people and process that allow you to make the progress that you're looking for.
No, that makes good sense. And to your point, just the scale. And then to your point there, I like the fact that you're right. There are certain things that people, are very enthralled about right now, but a sensor for a restaurant, your refrigerator is one of the most important things you have,
Right.
Keeping food safe. I mean, you're right. It's very fundamental. So kind of along those lines, what are the biggest lessons CBTS has learned, just with your experience in multi-location?
I think the big thing is, there's always this hypothetical, call it a sales or a total cost of ownership type model where somebody says, what is the cost of downtime? Right. That's always kind of been the scare tactic of what could you afford to be down for? In these sorts of environments, that's a very measurable and an answer that almost, call it 60% of the business has at their fingertips to be able to answer. And so we've really learned that, lessons learned. One is to plan for the unplanned for. So we do things like 4-hour guarantee of hardware on site. And so we'll use depoting to make sure hardware is within a 4-hour drive. We'll build contingencies in place of what happens if the power goes out to that site. Well, if we don't have power at that site, can we shift phone calls to the next closest location? Can we continue to take orders via a cloud-based, like a Lambda in AWS and distribute that to a different store? Those are the sorts of lessons learned. Is minutes feel like hours and hours feel like days in an environment where you really are counting, how many hamburgers sold or how many t-shirts sold per hour to justify your operational expense. That's the biggest lesson, is really we are measuring things in dollars down to the minute and building contingencies to make sure we can keep you up and running.
Which makes sense. It really puts you as a very holistic partner. To your point, you're worried about the same things that your customer is, which is fantastic. What sort of data is CBTS providing to customers, and what's the impact of that data?
So let's start with voice, right? We had a retail customer. They're an automotive shop, a couple hundred locations, and they were open until 8:00 every night. And what we were able to determine was there were no phone calls that were coming in after 6:00. And most of the people that were coming in, actually all of them that were coming in after 6:00 at night, were really just to pick up their vehicle, right? They had been dropped it off, went to work, it got repaired, they paid online, and they're just coming to pick up keys. And so that's where we work with like a Dropbox sort of idea, where you have lockers, you get a passcode, a unique 4-digit randomized code. After you've paid your bill, the keys get put in there. And so they were able to, by understanding their call flow data, understanding their foot count traffic, understanding dwell times, how long somebody stays in a store, right? And all of these we can collect via Bluetooth beacons, in their case, called detail reporting, to be able to reduce their head count, right? So, or I guess hours. They started closing at 6:30. They saved an hour and a half times 2 employees times 7 days a week times 200 locations. So those are the sorts of things that really can become actionable utilizing the technology. And then a lot in retail is really around consumer data behavior. We work with a large grocery retailer, and we can tell you how long somebody stands in front of the toothpaste and correlate that data with smart shelf technology to say, if you stand in front of the toothpaste aisle for 30 seconds or less, you tend to buy the top shelf product. If you spend more than 30 seconds to, a minute and a half, you tend to buy from shelves 2 or 3. And if you spend more than 2 minutes, you tend to buy from the bottom shelf, right? Meaning you're doing more research, you're maybe looking at the labels, really comparing the price per ounce, not just the price that's on the tag, right? Really a more informed buyer. That allows them to not only understand their customer better, but to sell that space, right? Colgate Palmolive will pay more to be on the top shelf when they understand that data. The majority of people pick their toothpaste in under 15 seconds. That creates 90% buying off the top shelf. Those are the sorts of things that understanding consumer buying behavior, that's king in a retail environment.
Well, first of all, that's fascinating. Let me stop and that is amazing. The fact that level of technology and how pragmatic it works for the business. How has AI ops helped in multi-location space, and what does CBTS do to unlock its full potential?
AI ops, I use this analogy. In the 60s, if your car was making a noise, you took it to the mechanic and you said, it's making this clank, clank, clank noise. The mechanic then had to start trying to from years of experience, I know that it might be this. And let's take this piece out, this part, look at it, see what's going on. Maybe it's not that part. Now you get a check engine light, you go to AutoZone, it pulls the code. Now you take it to the mechanic and you go, okay, this is the code, this is what's wrong with my vehicle. That's the role of AI ops. It's helping us very quickly understand throughout my network where an application starts performing poorly or why it's performing poorly. What are the common denominators? But just like me knowing that I've got an O2 sensor bad on my car doesn't make me a mechanic, AI ops doesn't replace the need for an advisor like CBTS that's helping manage that network 24/7, 365. So I want to give you back your nights and weekends. If I'm a network admin, AI ops is great, but I still don't want to get out of bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. Well, the CBTS Network Operations Center is 24/7. Also, years of experience, the same way that you trust your mechanic to do that work. We've got over 250 engineers sitting in our NOC that are certified on these OEMs that are years of experience of network engineering. So it helps us get to the root cause faster, but designing it correctly, implementing it, optimizing it, those are still years of experience of a trusted professional. So AI ops reduces downtime. There's certainly a benefit in getting to resolution faster, but it doesn't replace the need for trusted advisors like CBTS.
To your point, it also makes everyone just more informed. I mean, to your point, I've actually had an O2 sensor go out before, and it is interesting in the world where you go, it's so nice to know what the problem is.
Yeah.
That's half the challenge. What is the role IoT is basically? What is the role of I'll say information of tech, things playing in these types of businesses, and how is it enabled in IoT?
There's so much that is becoming, whether it be automated inventory replenishing, that's Internet of Things, that's sensors that have to sit on the shelf to know when a product has been taken off, to then the supply chain of, well, what happens? Does it get, do you borrow from another store? Do you auto replenish from a warehouse? Are you reading in real time what your sales? We know that we sell product X on average Saturday mornings, 80% more than we normally do. But this location across town, for whatever reason, they don't. That demographic, they don't sell as much of that product on Saturday mornings. They tend to sell more on Sunday mornings. Okay, well, let's replenish the inventory immediately from that store and then use a warehouse to backfill, right? Those are the sorts of things that become critical in retail. I mentioned already IoT sensors for food retail, checking temperature of fryers, of refrigerators, IoT around smart cameras and understanding. We work with one retailer that has it set up that they have smart cameras, and in their dining room, I would say it's a casual dining, right? So you order at the counter, pick up at the counter, and go and sit down in the dining room. And in that environment, if somebody were to spill a drink on the floor, the camera will pick up that there's a spill, and it will automatically send an email to that store 1754 at store.com, that distribution list. So it's the on-call manager, it's the store manager, it's the assistant manager, and it's alerting to them. So if you're sitting in, you've got your folks preparing food on the line, and you've got your manager doing back office things, well, now they get alerted there's been a spill, and they can go handle it themselves or direct somebody to move from the line. These are the sorts of things, but it requires always-on connectivity. It requires high bandwidth. And some of the things we're starting to see is you move into more robotics, which we're already starting to see that in some fast food chains, right? That robots are making hamburgers, robots are bartending. These are the sorts of things that are going to require very low latency, and this is going to move into a world of edge compute stack, which is actually a great fit for retail or multi-location. We're seeing organizations build small compute stack, a server in a store that's running microservices, it's running containers, it's got a security layer, but it's also serving as a controller for some of these IoT devices. And what that enables us to do is centralize the functions that make sense to be centralized, to move to the cloud the functions that need to be elastic, but to optimize spend and cost savings with things like domain services, point of sale, things that you want to be able to operate in an offline mode right there in the store. And so we're really turning these stores into, call it small compute hubs, and it's having a huge impact on how they do business.
That's brilliant. And also to your point with the edge, you're literally taking that compute to them, which is brilliant. What is the security formula for success, and how is CBTS enabling that?
This is a unique vertical more so than any other for a lot of reasons. let's talk franchises. Not all, depending on the organization, franchise agreement may not give you control. You may be able to make recommendations, but you may not be able to dictate what the franchisee does. That's a big deal because, as we know, there's a kind of a funny meme that says, my security budget before an attack and then my security budget after, right? Everybody's willing to spend to be reactive. Nobody spends to be proactive. The financial status of a single franchise owner versus corporate could be very different. And so if you can't dictate what their security posture is. The second piece is the biggest weakness in any organization, regardless of vertical, is it's you and I, right? It's the end user. I talk about this all the time. Every employee is a firewall. No matter how many safeguards you have in place, if you let somebody piggyback into the building, or you write your passwords down on a sticky note and leave it on your laptop when you walk away, or you click the link that your buddy sends you, because it's in Gmail, even though it's on your work PC. Those are the sorts of things you can't really protect against. What makes that challenging is typically in a multi-site franchise retail environment is you have a lot of higher turnover rates, seasonal rates. You have part-time employees that maybe don't have the same ability to go through the same trainings, annual audits, right? Those sorts of trainings, right? The know before type things. And so the formula where CBTS comes in first is to break down and understand what is your attack surface. So we call it attack surface management, understanding what is vulnerable. Obviously, in retail, you get a lot of customers' data, right? So obviously you have PCI and PCI DSS 3 and 4 just came out. Mm-hmm. Constantly evolving, constantly changing. So CBTS can help make sure you're meeting compliances. We also, through audits, those sorts of things, also can help break down, you've got all these credit card numbers. So guess what? People want to hack you, right? People want what you have stored. So how do we protect the store? How do you protect that point of sale? What are your traditional security approaches around intrusion detection and prevention, data loss prevention? Think of your traditional firewalling. But then we have to get down to the human beings and the people. And that's where we talk about the idea of zero trust network access or least privilege access management, identity and access management. A lot of organizations are moving to identity access management, privilege access management, identity access governance, this whole package, right? Think of your ForgeRock, Savience, Duos, Oktas, those sorts of companies. But again, in a retail store, that becomes very, very expensive for me to deploy to all of my employees because I have so many employees that maybe aren't sitting at a computer. And so it's about building, the security posture, not just around the person, but also around the device and also around the application. And that's kind of that zero trust that we look at, is looking for the identity of the person, the identity of the device, the identity of the application, and building a security posture around that. So this is obviously not something as simple as put a firewall at each store anymore. You're going to need the help of an advisor like CBTS.
To expand on that, how do you see corporate organizations influencing the franchise technology when, to your point, they may not have the authority to dictate it?
It's really around incentivizing. So we work with a lot of franchises where they can't dictate what the franchisee does. However, they incentivize them. One of it is just a brand new stack of technology, right? Maybe it's enabling something new. Today, we don't have guest Wi-Fi. But if you consume this CBTS package, you will be able to have guest Wi-Fi. And that will be a significant difference for your customers and hopefully for your bottom line. We've seen new order boards. Hey, we're moving to digital ordering boards. You don't have to go out and change them weekly or when new signage comes up. You can even do dynamic pricing. That's something that we've seen. So we work with one fast food chain where their franchisees, after 8 o'clock at night, will reduce the price on product rather than spoiling it and throwing it away at the end of the night. They try to get something off like after their dinner rush, right? So those sorts of things. But in order to enable that, you need to have wireless that covers your drive-through. And so again, we can't force you to buy this CBTS stack, but if you do, we're going to deliver these smart order boards for you. We're going to deliver guest Wi-Fi. We're going to deliver tablets that allow your employees to walk around the store. So things that make your quality of life or your experience at work or your customer experience better, we tend to see them incentivized. And for corporate, you want that standardization. That's why you incentivize. You want to know that, because listen, when your company, Acme Company's name shows up in the news for a data breach, nobody says, well, but hold on, that wasn't Acme. That was Paul's the franchisee. That's what happened, right? It's your name and you want to protect it. And so you partner with CBTS and we build, Bluewave brings us in as the trusted advisor and we build this great solution stack. And then you might have, 500 franchisees who say, I'm not going to invest in that. That's a really big problem. And so it's really about incentivizing why. And we build programs with some of our end customers where we'll go to their, they have franchise fairs or whatever their, big show is at the convention center. And we'll set up a booth there and we'll talk about our offering and what it's done for corporate and other franchisees. And we'll build marketing campaigns together. So it really is a targeted approach to kind of get to that standardization.
Now that's genius because to your point, everybody wins. Sometimes you just have to make sure you make a case for what the winning is going to be. So what is the importance of voice, omnichannel, and AI in the retail or franchise organization?
I hear a lot, voice is dead. Everybody uses their cell phones. But the first thing is retail, money's green. I don't care what generational demographic it's coming from. And I need to be able to serve anything from, Gen Z to baby boomers and everything in between, millennials and exennials and all of that fun stuff. So for those people who do want to pick up the phone and call and see my store hours are, that's important. Or that maybe they're driving and don't have access to a computer, but they want to see if their order's ready because they've done a pickup in store. Well, I can call and put in, my phone number into the automated system and get a status of if my order's ready to be picked up so you don't drive to the store too early. There's a lot of ways that people engage retailers with voice. A lot of times too, it will be under special circumstances. I want to know if you're open because we had a really bad snowstorm. Well, Google's not going to tell me that. I want to know if we have MLK Day coming up here. I want to know if you're open on MLK Day. Well, some might be, some might not be. I think typically shopping malls, you have to be. Whereas Christmas Day or New Year's Day, it's closed and observed for everybody. So there's a lot of things that are going to drive real-time information that would still go to voice as opposed to the internet. However, I want to be able to have that 360 journey. If I am calling into the store because I placed an order online, I don't want that to be a separate system where they say, oh, you need to call customer support. Do this with any cell phone provider. Do business with call their customer care line, buy a phone on their website, upgrade your phone on their website, and walk into a store. Those are 3 separate companies you're talking to. And they all operate, they have different quotas and different goals. That's a very poor customer experience. And so the idea of omnichannel, I can purchase in store, I can purchase online, I can call you, I can do your chat on whether it's AI on the front end and I eventually get to a person on the back end. I want to be able to have this seamless experience where you know me as a customer, regardless of how I'm doing business with you. And that's really the role for omni-channel and voice in retail.
No, I love that. And to your point, the different personas, the different groups, everybody just wants to get good service. And you're right, the technology can facilitate that. Well, John, this has been incredible information all across. I even myself, I feel more educated just about, the different things we should be considering and also can benefit from CBTS, especially with the franchise and multi-location solutions. Thank you so much for being a part of this today with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We really value the partnership with Bluewave, and I hope it's evident. There's a lot of our competitors. There's a lot of smart folks out there. We know what bits and bytes are. We know how to build a route, tag a VLAN. That's not what CBTS brings to the table. It's not just our networking capability or our security capabilities. It's our experience in this multi-site retail franchise model, really understanding what those business outcomes are that you're looking for. We just then bring the right technology to enable it, but it's more than just bits and bytes. It really is understanding your business.
No, absolutely. And even your examples, I can just see how your partners are benefiting from the holistic view and the pragmatic approaches that you have all the way across the board. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Have a great day.